Hey everyone! Today, we'll be reviewing a concept that we recently did just a few weeks ago. We'll be tackling how to use a slow push to build a huge CS lead over your opponent again. This is literally the most important concept that you can learn as a top laner, since it's just so brutal once you apply it, thus super important to learn properly. Your missions will be the same and are simple. You build a minion advantage, which allows you to control the wave and make it so your opponent can't fight back because you have more minions than them. Then you can easily contest every CS that they go for. And if you do this properly, you should get a much stronger base off than your opponent with your CS lead, which will let you buy an item advantage over them. For this, we'll be reviewing a game from G2 Wunder on Akali. Getting into the lane, Wunder looks to confirm that Aatrox is in none of these bushes. And once the minions arrive, if Wunder is the player that we know he is, he should already know that the lane is realistically won. League is quickly becoming a very refined game, where once a certain condition has been met, the outcome is easily predicted. In this example, Aatrox not being in lane means that he's likely leashing for Elise. This means that Wunder can do whatever he wants with the wave at the moment, and he does choose to employ the slow push strategy by starting to hit the creeps a bit. Once this strategy has been implemented, it is disgustingly effective and nearly impossible to break, especially in volatile melee matchups such as this one. So once Aatrox enters the lane, Wunder already has that minion advantage that you're looking for, so he begins playing aggressively. Aatrox tries to counter his aggression by pressuring Wunder during this creep, but forgets that Akali's Q is AoE. So Wunder not only picks up the CS, but wins the trade as well. Then, with his minion lead, Wunder secures a level 2 advantage and looks to move in to punish. Unfortunately, even with the burst of movement speed, he can't catch up, so he falls back, making sure to pick up the CS. Remember that you should be looking to abuse your level 2 advantage regardless of what champion you are playing. The correct response to being a level behind is just to back up most of the time, like this Aatrox does here. Once Wunder finishes shoving the wave, he looks to ward. This is important for two reasons. For one, we know that Elise started red. Most Elises will typically choose to do this clear that you see here to avoid AoE camps because she's bad at clearing them. But she forced Aatrox to leash, making him lose early lane control, so it's possible that she would adapt to try and help him out with one of these two paths. Another consideration Wunder has to think about is his own jungler's pathing. Gragas is doing wolves, raptors, red, krugs. This means that he won't be top for a very long time. So Elise could potentially come top, and Wunder won't have any jungler there to help him out for a while. More importantly, he wants to play aggressively, so this ward is crucial to keep him safe. If, for example, Gragas was pathing topside instead, he could do without the ward since he'd have jungle protection. And while that is a lot of jungle knowledge thrown into a top lane video, jungle pathing is just so relevant for top lane that it's important to go over it at times. So as Wunder walks back to lane, he has the option of pressuring Aatrox at tower with a Q since it's ranged, but more importantly, he should be making sure that he can maintain his minion lead in the next wave. This is critical to do while your opponent is busy farming. The minions were already a bit damaged, so as the two waves collide, we clearly see that the blue wave is healthier, so Wunder can maintain his slow push strategy and continue to make Aatrox's life miserable. Now, while you do want to make sure that you prioritize CS over harass most of the time, if your opponent is just walking into you and giving you a perfect trade combo, it's okay to miss some CS, as Wunder did to heavily punish here. And when executing this slow push strategy, you're going to be contesting every single CS that your opponent goes for, and will typically find yourself in a situation like this one. Using your abilities with longer range than your auto attack to evade harass while securing minions is a very important tactic. In this case, both players try to do the same thing, but Wunder does it slightly better, getting the minion and landing harass while dodging Aatrox's Q, and then, because Aatrox's Q is now on cooldown, he can move in to extend the trade. This is a pretty important top lane concept though. Situations like this where small spacing is critical can make or break the lane. This is applicable with any ability that has a longer range than your auto attack, such as Renekton Q, Maokai Q, Darius Q, etc. Reviewing this trade though, we should take a look at Aatrox's side of things. If you're the one being slow pushed on, it's important not to waste your abilities like this. If you do, when you have to CS, you have to commit to auto attack and walking right into your opponent's harass. You can't be short-sighted when playing top lane. If you're the one on the back foot, you need to concede some trades and save abilities to make sure that you can get farm without being completely destroyed. So now that Aatrox is super low on health, he has to play extremely safe, so Wunder just continues his slow push, denying as much as he can before the wave inevitably crashes. And under tower, Wunder does look to pressure because he does have some ranged abilities until Aatrox overcommits for some reason. Wunder is a merciless player, and with some fancy moves, punishes Aatrox, forcing him to recall only 4 minutes into the lane and with a mere 9 CS. That's how punishing this slow push tactic is, especially if your opponent continually misplays like this Aatrox does. Wunder then looks to cleanly shove the wave to set up a recall. However, as Aatrox moves in to stop him, Wunder purposefully cancels his own recall and looks to trade. Remember, Wunder has been destroying Aatrox, forcing him to recall with low gold. This means that Aatrox only bought a Doran's Blade, and since Wunder still has a potion left, he decides to stick around looking for an even better base. This next trade should demonstrate how huge the skill cap between these two players is. In the middle of this trade, Wunder makes a conscious decision to auto a minion and Q it again, making sure to kill it. This once again has given him the minion advantage that we desperately crave. Aatrox, on the other hand, doesn't adapt and gets baited into using 2 Qs onto Wunder. Despite buying, Aatrox is once again going to be slow pushed on because he didn't understand the true point of the trade. Wunder will now play safe until his abilities are back up, and you can clearly see once again, as this melee dies, that he does indeed have a 1 caster creep lead due to his mid-trade wave management. Once his abilities are up, he moves to contest the cannon, so Aatrox initiates a trade. Wunder spaces well with his E, and once Gragas shows up, Aatrox is forced to flash. The jungle help, while nice, is a bit irrelevant, since Wunder still would have won the trade from that position. But the help is always appreciated, and it does allow Wunder to cleanly base. For every role, but especially top, Tier 2 boots as your first item is a very powerful snowballing purchase, which Wunder does opt into. For once, if you roam or teleport this early on, your opponents are unlikely to have boots. This makes chasing them down much easier, or they can help you run for your life in this case. They're also obviously really useful after the roam to get back to lane, missing as little experience and farm as possible. But most importantly, they can be a really powerful buy in certain matchups where mobility can be a pseudo combat stat. We can see that the second Aatrox gets back to lane, Wunder immediately goes in. He knows that with his added mobility, he'll likely dodge most of Aatrox's sweet spot Qs and make use of his own passive easier, resulting in a fairly easy kill. Tier 2 boots are definitely a good purchase in matchups where they can outright counter your opponent. For example, against Ryze, rushing Merc Treads to counter his root and dodge his Qs is really powerful. Or rushing Ninja Tabby versus Tryndamere can allow you to space him out easier and negate a lot of his auto attack damage in the process. Definitely a purchase worth considering when you're snowballing, since the only downside is that your first core item is delayed, but that's irrelevant if you're snowballing. And we'll stop it here since Wunder won lane thanks to slow pushing, giving him a teleport advantage, which let him win bot lane as well. All done barely 7 minutes into the game. Thanks for watching everyone, and we'll see you next time.